I'm gonna look up here. I'm gonna tell you about the story about little Jerry Morey. Now the story's begun. Now I'm going to tell you about his brother Bill. Now the story's done.
Isn't that great? Well, Granddad, I want you to tell me about that swing.
Oh, this swing, how this swing was made. You know how you see you sitting in this swing now? Well, you know how come that swing that looks so pretty and things? Because I was going through the woods when I was a young boy. And I saw in lots of trees standing up, you see. And I saw a squirrel run up a tree. And I says, no, where's that squirrel going? So that squirrel had picked him out a long, tall tree up there. And that tree was a cherry tree. And that squirrel was going up that cherry tree to get some nuts to eat. And I said, well, he's got a long tree to go up that tree. And it went way up there, and the squirrel got up in the tree at thing. And I said, that's a beautiful tree. And I said, I'm going to get the man that owns this tree to let me have it. So he did. He said you could have that tree. And you know what kind of tree that was? That was a cherry tree that was way out in the woods and was growing by itself. And the other trees were looking at it, but it just kept growing right straight on up. So we went down there, and we cut that tree down. And long, big, beautiful tree, you know. And we took it to the sawmill and had the man to saw it all up. And I said, that's a tree that you never hardly can find like that. So we took that tree and we cut it all up. That was a long time when I had a shop. And you see, I took that little lumber home and we dried it in a kiln. A kiln is where you dry the moisture out. And it makes the wood then comes out and breaks all of the pretty parts of the wood out. So we got that out and I had a nice little shop there. And I was making just different little things. And making for little boys just like you. And I cut this up, and I took it to the shop, and I dried it. And at nights I'd go out there and work on it and things. And it began to get prettier and prettier as I worked on it. And you see where it is now? It's a long, it's a beautiful swing. It was made, and you sitting in a pretty swing your great-granddaddy made, and comes along a little boy, like you can swing in it. Now when you get to be an old man sometime, this swing will be good shape, and they'll give it to you to swing in it. And you say one time that my great-granddaddy and I was sitting in that swing, swinging. Yeah. How you like it? You like that swing? Well, I made swings for lots of people. And you know, that was one of the pleasures I had, of making swings and giving them to people. Yes, sir. And you've now got a swing of your own, haven't you? Yes, sir. We sure did. Now, when you look at that picture sometime, you know how you see that swing that your great-granddaddy made for you. And here you are swinging in it. Yes, sir. And maybe some of your children will be swinging in it. It might be a long time off, but those long times, if you just keep living long enough, that you'll come to them to where you can join them too. Yes, sir. Yeah, look at you.
Well, we're gonna talk for just a few minutes.
Okay.
Daddy, why don't you tell me about when you were a little boy, when all of you all wore dresses? The 6 boys in your family wore dresses. Tell me about that.
Well, when he gets ready.
Go and tell me about it now.
You're talking about the little boys, how we used to dress and how that we used to be raised up.
Yeah.
Now, my father and my mother, they
in our family, we had 6 boys. I was the 5th boy in the family, next to the youngest. And we all lived right, our farm was just on the outside of town.
What town was that?
Town of Roxy, Mississippi.
Roxy, Mississippi.
Roxy, Mississippi.
Is that close to Natchez?
That's 24 miles from Natchez. That was our closest marketing place for cotton. And my father would get his cotton hauled into Natchez, which was the marketing place for the cotton. They had 4 yoke of oxen that we put on a wagon that was held 5 bales of cotton on that. And we went into Natchez, and she'd sell that cotton and get our groceries there. And return, it would take about 2 days to get the cotton into Natchez. And the price of cotton at that time run from 5 to 10 cents a pound, which is equal to around 25 to 30 dollars a bale of cotton, which weighed about 500 pounds. We'd sell that cotton. In return, we'd get the groceries that we were going to use for the winter. And they'd bring them back. We had a few little stores around. We'd get a barrel, a pick of pork, and we'd get several back kitchen, and he kept those things in there to supply the people on the farm. And pick of pork is a kind of a salt meat, but it's in brine, and it comes in barrels. And he'd make the distribution of that to the people that he had on the farm.
That was your grandfather.
My grandfather?
I said, was that your grandfather?
No, that was my father.
Your father.
My father.
All right.
I never knew my grandfather of either side.
Now, your father was named?
Augustus Rhodes. And he was called into the Civil War, the Civil War, and that was in 1964. 1864.
In what year was your father born?
I don't know when he was born, the exact date. But I know he was 65 years of age when he died.
Okay. Now, your father, what was his wife's name?
Jane Elizabeth Farnham.
Jane Elizabeth Farnham.
Yeah. And they first lived at Meadville, and they had one...
Meadville, Mississippi?
Meadville, Mississippi, which was the county seat of Franklin County. Roxy was 14 miles from the county seat. And I often would drive to the county seat over there, as he was a county civil engineer, and he would attend court, which would last about 2 weeks. And he'd take me with him on a little cart, jumper cart. And we spend the 2 weeks there in court. And he was a county civil engineer. He learned to be a civil engineer when he came back from the Civil War. He was wounded several times in the Civil War.
What company was he in?
He was in the 30th Mississippi Regiment.
Is this the infantry or?
I don't know which one it was. But he came back, and when he came back, the old slave woman that my grandmother had, and which stayed with her all the time of the Civil War, they got in and they burnt all the fences down. And her and my father's mother had those fences, rail fences, to refix. But when he was mustered out in California, in North Carolina. and they had to walk home. He walked home, and
Now,
he
how
had
far
no...
do you think that was?
I don't know how far it was. It must have been 500-600 miles. It really took him a time to get home. He had no hat to wear, and he came all the way through with the Indians there, and the Indians would help him as he come on back. And he come home, he had no profession then at all. So he decided he'd like to be a civil engineer. So he got together and got some civil engineering books and started to study them. He'd go in the room and lock himself in the room, and he'd stay there all day studying those books. So when he got out of there, he got a little level and started civil engineer's work in the county. And he began to study and more till he could even work trigonometry without anything, self-educated. He went from there on, and the railroad was to be put up there. So they got him to be the engineer for the dump work of the Y&MV Railroad.
Now, what was that, Y&MV?
Y&M, or Yazoo and Mississippi Valley Road, which run eventually, after the building, it ran from New Orleans to Chicago. The Illinois Central run parallel to it from New Orleans. It went to Jackson, Mississippi, and on through Tennessee to Chicago. And the Y&MV ran from New Orleans on through to Vicksburg. Now, Vicksburg and Jackson is about 50 miles apart, and they run parallel to each other, and it runs through Memphis, and then run on into St. Louis, and they join the Illinois Central Railroad. And he kept on, and my first brother then, Ralph Rhodes, he wanted him to go to school. Now, Ralph wasn't born. All the family was born in Roxy, Mississippi, except Ralph. Ralph was the first one born, and he was born over at the county seat, Meadville, before we moved to Roxy, and he bought 200 acres of farmland then. So Ralph, they sent him to LSU. That was at Baton Rouge.
Now, who sent him to LSU?
My father did.
I see.
And they got enough money to send him there, and he worked then 4 years in the mess hall and took a civil engineering course.
He just kind of worked his way through school.
And he worked his way through school working at the mess hall.
At LSU?
LSU. And when he came home, he did some surveying around there, and he got a job in Memphis. And he laid out all the part of Memphis that joined the zoo there in Memphis then. Then he took an examination. Took an examination, and he went into the War Department, the construction of the War Department at Long Island, Rhode Island, for the government. That was before the world's first war.
World War I.
World War I. And he was designated then to draw all the fortifications for the disappearing guns that was used in the First World War. Well, he went on from there, and he did engineering work then for the rivers and harbors. And then he was sent to Muscle Shoals as one of the directors of the first dam that was put up in the United States, Muscle Shoals in Alabama. Well, he was on the construction work there, during the engineering work there, and he fell on the big boulders or rocks, and he crippled himself. So they transferred him then to Savannah, Georgia, and put him in charge of the Savannah, Georgia water harvest for the government. But he stayed there until he put him then in charge of all the rivers and harbors, the outlets of the rivers and harbors, from California to the Mexican Gulf there. And he kept on that until the First World War come on in, and he was one that was put with the Red Ray part of the waterworks over there. So he was transferred then. He was good at that. He was transferred then to put in the water where the scour is out, the boulders, the different streams.
They dredge it?
Huh?
They dredge it?
To dredge it. So he fixed the mouth of the Mississippi River. He'd go down into glass cages and he'd find the flow, how it was going, the different flow, and there he'd have them put these boulders in there so it would scour the channel out to the waterways. And it continued on there till it was time to retire. And when he went to retire, he retired on the recalling engineers. So he was recalled in, and they barred him. The king of Thailand barred him then to locate the channels there so that the submarine base ships could not come from Russia on into India. So
Siam, wasn't it?
time there.
What's that, Thailand?
And he stayed then on the retired list, relief list then for the government until he was very old. But
Now,
at that time that he was rated as one of the 6 greatest engineers of the United States at that time.
wasn't he the author of a college textbook on
He was author
tidal
of
rivers and harbors?
Rivers and Harbors. He was the author of those, and he wrote several books on that.
And he was also an artist, and
He
his
was an
hobby
artist. He drew pictures for the Life magazine, front of the Life magazine in his times. There,
All right.
he was a good artist.
Now, Uncle Ralph married Aunt
He
Bessie.
married one of the professor's daughters of LSU.
And Aunt Bessie's last name was
Yeah.
what before she married?
Goodale.
Goodale.
Yeah.
Bessie Goodale.
Bessie Goodale. She was the daughter of one of the professors.
Now, your next brother was named
was named Henry.
Henry.
Ralph finished at LSU in 00, and Henry finished in 02.
Okay, and your next brother was named
Named Herbert.
Herbert, and he was also a civil engineer.
He was also a civil engineer.
And when did he finish?
He went to Mississippi State, Mississippi A&M College.
And what year did he finish?
He didn't finish. He quit in his sophomore year.
Okay, and then the next one?
And the next one was Clarence J. Rhodes. But he went to Mississippi State, and he took a engineering course at Mississippi, A&M Mississippi.
All right, and then you were next, weren't you?
I was next.
And you finished when?
I didn't. I had to leave the highest grade that there was. It dropped to school in the entire county was the 7th grade.
All right, now let me ask you this. Now, we'll come back to you in a minute.
Yeah.
The next one was Uncle Norton.
Uncle Norton.
All right. And 4 out of the 6 boys finished college, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
I think that's very unusual for being that long ago,
Yeah.
because very few people went to college then and finished.
Well, the highest grades of a high school that they had in Franklin County, of which we lived in at Rochester, Franklin County, was the 7th grade. So I left the 7th grade and went to Mississippi State. Mississippi State, A&M, Mississippi.
Before we get into that, I would like to know about, we'll come back to your education in a minute, and when you and Mama got married, but I'd like for you to tell me about when you boys were small, and the little dresses that you all wore. Who made the dresses?
They made the only dresses that I know of, and we wore those until I guess we were 7 and 8 years old. And
did you have long hair too, or did they cut your hair like a little boy?
I had long hair and I had long curls.
Did you all look like little girls?
Well, yes, we wore aprons instead of pants at that time. And we wore those until we was pretty good-sized boys. And I remember the time that they put me in a chair, and the ladies of the Senate come in there, and they cut my hair standing in one of the chairs, I think, that you have yet.
Oh, well, I have those 2 chairs in my living room.
And I said they stood me in one of those and cut my hair.
And that's where you got your first haircut?
That's where I got my first hair. They were long 6-inch curls.
Well, maybe that's why I like to cut your hair now.
Well, probably so. If you did, you learned a good lesson, because I'm satisfied with the barber work that
Did all you little boys wear dresses? Was that?
Oh, as far as I know that there was. Of course, I remember very little when Ralph and Henry were small.
Was that the custom for all the little boys in the neighborhood?
I suppose so, so I guess I followed the custom. And I done all right there.
Yeah.
And we had an old nigger, Charlie Briggs, that had waited on us at the house and helped nurse us all there with the
he was kind of the family friend, wasn't he?
That's right. Who, Charlie Briggs?
Right.
Oh, yes. He was a colored man and one of the finest that was ever born and lived. And he was a slave at one time and was turned to loose, you see. And
he came to stay with you all?
Come to stay with us and raised us there. And he would sit down on rainy days and tell us all the stories that he had over his young days in life. So, I don't know.
Well, could you tell me about your great-grandfather?
I don't remember my great-grandfather. I only...
well, could you tell me his background about when he was coming through from North Carolina and was coming through with this caravan that was coming down to get salt?
Yes, he was following from California, from the North Carolinas, and he was coming down to make their home in Louisiana. Well, they got ahead of him, and he got lost in the woods, and they stayed there a week looking for him, and they couldn't find him.
This was a caravan
that
several wagons coming through, wasn't it?
That's right. This was coming from Carolinas to down into Louisiana. They went to the
Point Capee, Louisiana?
Yeah, Point Capee on the Red River. And I know very little about that except that my grandmother, that was the mother of my father, and they moved to Rochester. And the old slave was still with her. And he bought the land there and started surveying work from there.
Well, now, this young boy that got separated from this caravan that was coming from North Carolina.
That was my father's father.
All right. And then didn't a group of Indians take him in after they found him?
Took him in. He kept him there about a year with him. And he got large enough to want to go and find his people. So the Indians started out with him and they walked to Louisiana with him.
Oh, I thought it was Little Springs, Mississippi.
Well, they moved from Little Springs.
I see.
That's where my grandmother was born and raised. She was a Kane. And my father, they had 2 children. One was Alice Rhodes. That was my father's sister, and she died very young, and she is buried in the cemetery at Little Springs in Franklin County, Mississippi.
Now, this young man that was taken in by the Indians and then came to Little Springs, Mississippi, then he grew up and he married this Frances Kane, was her name?
No. Yes, that's right. He grew up and married Frances Crane, which was my grandmother and my father's mother.
Yes, yes.
And I knew very little about them because most of my real close mother and my father and my grandmother and all, they died when I was young, and I learned very little of the history of theirs. In fact, the history of it that time, it was short histories because they didn't write them down in books. They were carried in memory.
All right. Now, your mother.
My mother's.
Was named.
My mother was Jane Elizabeth Farnham. They lived at Natchez.
But her
now my mother's mother came from England.
Broadway, England.
England was Stevens White, and they lived in Natchez, and that's where she married Farnham in Natchez. So he's buried. Stevens White is buried in the cemetery at Natchez, and I was named for my grandmother's brother.
And his name was Stephen White.
Stevens White. He and his sister came over in one of the boats from England, and they located and lived in Natchez.
And Aunt Edna and Aunt Clara were grandmother's sisters?
They were my mother's sister.
Your mother's sisters?
Mother's sister, and they had one brother, Francis, what was his name? He was a Farnham.
Oh.
And when he had grown and went to school, I don't know exactly the school he went to, he went up in one of the northern states, and he taught school there.
Daddy, I think that brother, was his name George or John Farnham?
No.
I think this man was a professor at Wheaton College.
I think so too.
Yes. Yes.
So
out of Chicago.
I never did see any of my cousins, which was his children, and the others. But I used to write to them quite often. That brought us on down to where.
Well, now, would you like to tell me about your education, and then when you and Mama got married, and where you met her? And
well, the highest schooling that there was in our hometown was at Roxy, and in other words, the highest school. There wasn't any high schools at the time that I started out. And I went to the Roxy School, which is a little elementary school, and that's as high as it went, until I got to the 7th grade. And then my father sent me to Mississippi A&M College, where my brother was going to school. And I started in there in the preparatory department. So I stayed in the preparatory department 2 years before I could enter freshman. And when I entered freshman, then I continued on, working my way through school. And in fact, the only money that I know that was ever spent on me and my education by my home people was the first $125 that it cost me to stay in Mississippi A&M for the year's time as a prep.
Granddad, was it Mississippi A&M? then? Or
Mississippi
State?
A&M then. It was a Stark of Mississippi.
But now, is that Mississippi State now?
It's the Mississippi State now.
The same school?
Same school. Well, I went there, and the people of the Will Whittington and Luther Whittington, and the entire Whittington family, which was from Little Springs, they moved to Roxley about the same time that my mother and father were married, and they lived across the street. So Will was the oldest boy in the Whittington family across the street.
Yeah, well, tell me
So
about...
he went to Mississippi College, and I used to walk down the railroad track with him.
When you finished school at Mississippi A&M in 1912, then what happened?
I was sent to Louisiana to take charge of an agricultural school, of which I ran for 1 year. At that time, they were placing county agents, county agricultural agents, in most of the counties. So I was appointed the first agricultural agent of Arcadia Parish, Louisiana.
And you were going to live in Crowley?
And Crowley was our county seat.
Right.
And I continued then until a year. So, and I got a postcard then.
Wait just a minute.
On my visit back to see my mother.
All right. Now, before we go on to that, I forgot to ask you about your trip to Cuba. Let's go back to your college days for just a minute.
Well, you do that.
Tell me about you and the football team going to Cuba, and how many of you all went on that trip?
Yeah. First thing I ought to tell you how I got into football.
Okay.
Well, wait, now don't start it yet, Roddy. When I left to go to Mississippi State, I had to enter the preparatory department, because I couldn't do it. So I was in the preparatory department a year before that I could enter the freshman class. When I entered the freshman, during my fifth year, I organized I'd never seen a football. Before that time, I heard of football being played. But at that time, I saw them playing football out there. So I organized me a prep team, and we played ball down below the YMCA.
How long did you play football while you were in school? How many years?
That was when I was a prep. In my freshman year, I went out as one on the second scrub team.
Then when did you make the first team?
I was in 1909. The beginning of that, I must have been a good player on the scrub team, because the coaches came to me one night and asked me could I learn the signals of the varsity team. I said, certainly I can say. So they stayed with me all night. And they took me to New Orleans to play Tulane University the next day. I was put in to play that with the signals as I had learned. At that game, President Taft was sitting on one side, the Tulane side of the field. At the intermission, he crossed into our side of the field. And I played the entire game. There was football then was played 60 minutes, 30 minutes each, period.
Didn't have any substitutes either, did you?
No substitutes whatsoever.
If you got hurt, you just kept on playing.
No, if you got hurt, you just kept playing, that's all. Or they put another man in there.
And then
during that time, that first game, they put me in there, and they put me in this fullback. Well, we wasn't playing but a few minutes till we got up near the goal line, and they gave me that ball. I made a touchdown for Mississippi on that. And I went on and played the entire game, and I made 2 touchdowns, and we beat Tulane.
Okay.
That was in 1909.
And then when did you all go to Cuba? When
We
did
went
you
to
play football?
Cuba the first day of 1910. We played the Atletico de Cuba in Havana, Cuba. And
How many of you all went on that trip?
there was about 16 of us that went on that. So we played them. And
But you just took the main team, and there were no substitutes, were there?
no, there was a few. I think there's about 3 or 4. And we played them, and of course there wasn't much of a game because we played in the Bull Arena, and we played the Cubans, which were not well trained or anything.
Well, now tell me this: you made, didn't you make All Southern one year?
I made All Southern in my senior year.
As halfback.
It's halfback at Mississippi State.
And then what kind of track records did you make in school?
I learned to run when I was a young boy, running in the fields and things.
Yeah, I know, but tell me what kind of medals you got for.
Oh, I got quite a number of medals for running the quarter of a mile, and the relay team, and then of the shot put.
Yeah, what other events were you in? What other events were you in?
Those are the only 3 events in track that I was in, but I was manager and captain of my track team.
Now, you got lots of medals, and you gave them to all the girls.
I gave them to all the girls.
And you don't have any left now, do you?
I have none left whatsoever.
Okay, now what was some of
the
your
other...
other...
They wouldn't give them back to me.
Well, they were proud of those medals. What were some of the other things you did? Did you have motorcycles? What was your transportation at that time?
When I was appointed county agent, I had a horse and buggy.
Yeah. When did you have the motorcycles?
Well, I was about a year with a horse and buggy, and I bought an old second-hand motorcycle then, and got that, and had that for several years. And then I got an old Ford car, $125, and I ran that until the county police jury, which is a directed factory in that, they gave me a new Ford car. The Ford car then, as I remember, they paid $385 for the cars that come in.
Was this before you got married?
Yes, this was before I got married.
Now tell me, how did you meet Mama, and what was the occasion?
When I was county agent there, our cousin, who was depot agent at Hermanville, Mississippi, sent me a card in Louisiana and asked me to come up. She wanted me to meet Ethel. So
Ethel who? Ethel Gordon?
She didn't tell me what name. She just wanted me to meet Ethel. So I went on up there, and Ethel Gordon was there then, out to Miss Molly Rollins. She was depot agent. She had a home that was made from boxcars.
Okay, now this was Ethel, who is my mother.
Yes,
and
right.
she had already graduated from Intermont College at Bristol, Virginia.
That's right.
And she was back in Hermanville.
She was teaching school then.
I thought she was teaching music.
Well, music.
Yes,
well, she was teaching music in the high school.
Right. She had graduated. She had a degree in music, didn't she?
Yes, she had it at
Intermont.
Boston Conservatory of Music in Boston. She was living then with her aunt when she was going to school.
Is that Annie Belding?
Annie Belding, that's correct. Which was my father-in-law's sister.
Now, Mama's mother and father was named Mary or Molly and Willard Gordon, that lived at Hermanville, Mississippi.
That's right.
On a plantation?
That's right. They was on the plantation.
Called
she asked me to come see her.
Now, the plantation was named Overlook Manor.
Overlook Manor.
Near Port Gibson, Mississippi.
Out 3 miles from Port Gibson.
All
1 mile from Hermanville.
Now, did you go to the party that you were invited to?
Yeah, I went to the party that I was invited to.
What did you think about Ethel when you met her?
Well, I must have been infatuated with her because I continued to
want to go see her.
Uh-huh.
But when I'd go, well, I'd stay at their house about 2 days. So 3 days, there wasn't any place to stay.
Well, of course, they had a big plantation home, so they had plenty of room.
A big plantation and a beautiful home.
Uh-huh.
It was built from material that came down to and came up to Mississippi on one of the old colonial homes that was built on this plantation.
Yes, well,
the
now,
materials from it was brought up the Mississippi River and put the
from New Orleans, probably.
from New Orleans.
All right. Now, you went with Ethel Gordon for
I
how
went
long?
with Ethel then from the time I was Pawnee County agent, I suppose about a year's time. And that we were married then in Overlook Manor, the plantation home.
You were married at Overlook Manor.
Yeah.
And then you all went to Crowley, Louisiana?
We went to Crowley, and we...
To work?
went to continue on my work. Then I got to leave Baptist to get married.
And then how long did you live in the town of Crowley?
We lived in the town of Crowley when our first child was born.
How long did you live there?
It must have been a couple of years.
All right. And then you got an opportunity to buy this farm.
At that time, they gave my wife, her aunt gave her, and the rest of the children, $2,000 each.
She gave, Auntie Belding gave each one of the...
The 3 children, Willard, Nettie, and Ethel, $2,000 each.
But that was sort of a wedding present.
That was a wedding present. So my wife,
and I think...
Ethel, then handed the check over to me.
Well, now, wait a minute. I think that Auntie Belding had intended for Ethel, my mother, to use this money for her silver and her crystal and her china.
That's correct.
To get started on.
She sacrificed all that and gave me that check and asked me to invest it.
Well, you had an opportunity that came up at that time that you could use it for.
That's right.
And you could use it as a down payment on this property?
On the first property, which we bought in 1916.
All right, now tell me, this property is 4 miles southeast of Crowley, Louisiana.
That's right, 3 miles south.
3 miles, all right. Yeah. Now, tell me about the rest of it. Who owned this property before?
This property was owned by the Sweezes, and they didn't keep. They were not much farmers, but they bought that property. That property was bought from Louis Deputy. Louis Deputy homesteaded that from the government. And I did have the papers of which President Jefferson, I think it was Jefferson, President Jefferson, give him the homestead
paper.
That he homesteaded 80 acres, and then they could tree homestead 80 acres joining. And they
now
planted.
What does that mean, to tree homestead something?
It means that the government would let you have 80 acres more on a homestead basis, provided that you put that so many trees in there. But they didn't stipulate how the trees had been planted, so they put all these trees about 1.5 feet apart in the catalpa trees. And they grew up on this 160 acres there. And later, we used those same trees for folks that fenced that farm.
And you know, I remember those catalpa trees, too.
The catalpa tree will last indefinitely. Yes, sir.
And you just keep cutting it back and then put new...
That's right, and they come out again. And until...
And then where did those big trees come from that...
Those trees then, I thought that it was a place for us to farm, so I got a leave of absence from the Homestead Association, from the government that I worked for the Homestead Association. And I went on the farm for 1 year. We took an old tenant house, wore down, and she and I we moved out there on it. Then you were born, and Helen were born on this plantation for 3 years.
No, the farm. We were born on the farm.
Yeah.
Marion was born in
But
Payne.
rice was selling so cheap then, I knew that I'd have to change. So I got that job then. I mean, Mr. Kaplan then wanted me then.
Well, tell us about some of the things that happened on the farm. About the time that we were taking Marion up there to the little school, and we were in the car.
Oh yeah, Ebenezer School was the first school that I went to in President West, Louisiana, and we moved there, which was a mile from our farm. And I'd taken Marion and up to school then.
In what?
Up to Ebenezer School.
In a old Ford car?
Our old Ford car, yeah.
Two-seated.
And with two-seated car, no top to it. So coming home, you was in the back. And when I got home, 3 miles from there, I looked in the back, and you wasn't there. And so I started back up the road as fast as to go that old
Now
car.
this is Dorothy that was in the back seat of the car, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Dorothy.
Yeah.
And she'd fell out, but she didn't hurt her. And she was running down the road to meet us.
Trying to catch up with the car.
Trying to catch up with the car, yeah.
Okay, now just tell me one more thing about when Helen got in the lot with the cow and...
Oh, yeah. When we were on the farm, I was on the other end of the farm, building a fence.
Was it out with you in a wagon?
Yeah, you was down with a wagon in there. And the girl that was was helping your mother with Helen when she was a very small baby then. She'd taken her out in the yard and where the calf was. And the cow saw that they were in that lot there with it, so she jumped the fence.
The cow saw that Helen was in the lot with the calf.
She broke the gate down and got in there, and she began to hook and pick Helen up with the horns and picked her up. And
she didn't want her to get to her little calf, did she?
No, didn't want to get to the calf. So by that time, I had left. They sent me and said that they'd...
One of the other girls came for us, didn't
This
they?
little girl that was helping with my wife, with Helen, came to running down there, and I run back. And she said the cow's the one that hooked us, so I still had the hand axe in my...
The what?
A hand axe in my hand.
An axe.
So I threw it with the cut a hip wide open.
So it hit her in the flank, didn't it?
Flank, yeah.
I think I remember you were standing on the porch and the cow was running by and you just
Yeah, I threw that
axe
at
at
her.
her and...
I was so angry that she'd tried to kill the baby
Sure.
that I threw the axe at her and hit her in the hip.
But the baby, Helen wasn't hurt.
She wasn't hurt at all.
She was
You
bruised.
just rolled it.
Dad, can you tell Helen and I about your work as a county agent in Acadia Parish, Louisiana?
Yeah. I'd be glad to tell you about the work because it fitted right into the courses that I had taken at Mississippi A&M College. I was sent from there as one of the first county agents of Acadia Parish, Louisiana. They are sent there, and I was fit to the age of the people that I was going to work with.
And what were your responsibilities?
My responsibilities at that period was to improve the conditions or welfare conditions of the farmers there in their profession of which they were following. Most of the profession of which they were following was rice harvesting and cattle raising. And this is somewhat new to me, but the fundamental principles for each one of these crops I had been well established with so that I could be of assistance to the one that I was put there to help. So as I went in there and was sent in there by the president of Mississippi State College, at Mississippi A&M College at that time, we were Jack Hardy, I was received with open arms and welcome as a young man leaving school that could give information to the profession of these people. most of these people at that time, of which I had work to do with, were what's called the Cajun people, ones that was moved from Canada down there to establish themselves there. So the only practical means that they had of speech was what they called the Canadian gumbo, which is one of the branches of the French nation. I moved in with them with very little knowledge of that, but I was received, and I went right to work with the farmers of which I was put there to do with. They welcomed me in every division that I had there.
And you had to, your responsibility was to improve the rice.
Improve the rice.
Improve the stock.
They improved the stock, cattle, which I had been taught to do in Mississippi A&M. I went there, and at first I established ourselves in the branch of cattle raising. But at the same time that with cattle, we had lots of trouble with anthrax, which was one of the dreaded diseases of the cattle and mules of that thing.
Is anthrax the same thing as hoof and mouth disease?
No. It's entirely different.
I see.
It's a blood disease of which a poisonous bacteria enters the body through the vaccination of mosquitoes and flies, and it's carried that away.
And you had to vaccinate a lot of the
I had to vaccinate. The only means that we had of combating anthrax was through vaccination. But we had to give 3 doses. 1 dose introducing it to the bodies of the animal, and the other immunizing as this vaccine becomes stronger. Those that we had vaccinated was absolutely immune from anthrax, and we had to practically vaccinate everything. I went out with this Cajuns, or the French people there, to vaccinate, and we vaccinated as high as 400 head of cattle and mules in 1 day's time.
Now, tell me, did you go anywhere else to get a breed of calves and cattle that you could introduce to the...
At the same time that we were eliminating this dreaded disease, we were trying to build up the breed cattle as to whether it might be milk or whether it might be beef or utility.
Now, you got these calves from what state?
No. First I began to work with the farmers, with that cattle, going to Beeville, Texas, and Corpus Christi, which was one of the largest, at that time, was one of the largest cattle people. That was Taft Ranch, near Corpus Christi there.
Now,
I would take bunches of farmers with a list of the bulls that they wanted. We purchased them there and had them shipped for distribution.
yes. And where else did you go to get calves?
I went to for the children then. It was organized in the different classes: beef cattle, milk and cattle, and various other diseases, the pig cubs, the corn cubs, and other.
And where else did you get the cattle?
We went to get the cattle in. I got them from the through the vicinity dairy section of East Lansing, which was the capital of there.
Michigan.
I carried a letter of introduction from the beef, the dairy department of Louisiana State University to that up there, which they gave me one of their experienced men, and it was 1 month getting these calves after seeing what whether they were beef cattle, dairy or not, for my various youth clubs. The boys and clubs.
Now, and then you had another project of planting trees in the county too, didn't you?
Yes, I had a project of planting trees.
And then just say a word about the trees that you got to plant on our farm.
Well, at that time, I had left the farm then, but I went back to it, and we had 3 children then, 1, 3, and 5 years of age, and 3 girls. And with them, we lived on the farm for 2 years. But I didn't think that was the proper place in the country to raise children. So I then was asked, would I take charge of one of the mules that one of the largest planters in the state of Louisiana owned, which was about 3,600 head. To feed his mules, to consume about one carload of feed a day. He was asked, would I take these mules, which were dying in unbalanced feed and mouth conditions where they couldn't eat the feed. The first thing that I did was got in the veterinary and folded the teeth down. Folding the teeth means that we hold the head up and take a large rasp and level off the teeth in the mule so they could chew and digest the feed.
And this is when you started the Liberty Feed Mill in Captain, Louisiana.
I started then to give these mules a balanced feed of my own formulas. This began to improve after that very much. And as these mules improved over the period, this period of time and things, the other plantation owners noticed these mules. And then they were called on me to help supply those feed. Well, I supplied the feed and helped in the animals until my mill was too small. So that's we built at that time. My feed had taken a good hold in the mixed feeds in Louisiana, and I had to increase my mill, of which we went to Nordyke and Mormons in Indiana and bought a very much larger mill.
Now, how many, over what area did you supply feed?
I've supplied feed then for most every institution in the state. The city of New Orleans, the state penitentiary, the different various institutions of the state. And at that time, we had the Mississippi flood that overflowed most of the counties of ours. So I was called on then to manufacture feed to supply the assemblance of all these animals that had been run out from the marches.
Now tell me, how long did did you work in this capacity as manager of the Liberty Feed Mill in Captain, Louisiana?
I started in 1922.
And then how long did you stay there?
I stayed there until 32.
And then where did you go after that?
After that, I retired back to the county agent work there, teaching in.
Then we went to Ebenezer.
Ebenezer.
Right outside of Crowley.
That's right.
Right, and what was your capacity there?
My capacity there was running this school, agricultural school. And I ran that school then until 1934.
And then what did you do?
Well, at that time, our whole entire country was in a bad fix of agriculture ways.
That was right after the Depression of 1929.
That's right. After when the farmers then, the poor people had nothing else. They'd been practically run off of the farms to need of better agriculture.
And then you went with the Farm Security Administration in 1934. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I went in there and was at the head. I was talking to the Director of Agriculture in there when Dr. T. Roy Reed, which had been selected to the 3 states, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas, to establish these projects, large projects, for those farmers that had to leave their farms there on account of what was the conditions. As I was talking to the Director of Agriculture there, Dr. Reed, who was director of these 3 states, and his assistant, Whitaker, phoned to the department in LSU, asking could they furnish a man that could manage
plantations and helped the people that were established in these on.
Now, this was during Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal.
That was during Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal.
And at that time, Henry Wallace was Secretary of Agriculture.
Henry Wallace was Secretary of Agriculture.
And then you were first sent to Jackson, Mississippi.
I was first selected. He asked me then, was I the same Rhodes that played ball in Mississippi? I told him yes. He said he'd like to talk to me at Little Rock, and would I come up there? I went up there, and he asked me would I establish an office in Jackson, Mississippi, to accommodate their department, which I did. I bought land there for a year and a half, from Durant, Mississippi to Brookhaven, Mississippi. I phoned them at that time that I had bought all the land that they had in mind. So he asked me then, would I come to up to Little Rock, Arkansas, their headquarters. So I went up there. So they asked me would I take charge of the 10,000 and something acres that they had bought undeveloped and build it into a Gilbert project, which was established between the towns of England, Arkansas, and Pineville. I went there at his directions and under their supervision, their plan of supervision to establish these, and started out. The first thing that I did was to establish the number of units that this Moore and Wright, these three plantations, would be divided into, and the amount of land that would be in each one.
And what was in each unit?
Each unit consists of approximately 40 acres. And as we selected these families, there was this construction that was being taken place under my supervision of these different 210 farms.
Yes. Now, these were established, and there was a model unit that Mrs. Roosevelt.
Mrs. Roosevelt come down and visit, right?
And she furnished one of the homes, didn't she?
I had one of the homes that had been completed. She asked me for the floor plans of this. So she sent me from Washington enough furniture to furnish this as a model home of which we were establishing this unit under.
Now, you were with the Farm Security Administration 10 years, and then it was being phased out, wasn't it?
After 10 years of work and the establishment of the Building and Loan Association, the Homestead Association, the stores, the machinery part of that, and the home equity division, and then established a school to take care of the children under this place.
And an incorporated town was formed from this, wasn't it? Post office, church,
we named our town, and the one that represented our part of the country of Washington helped me establish a post office and all that to build this into a town, Rhodes.
No, Wright, Arkansas, wasn't it? W-R-I-G-H-T?
Well, if we wanted to be named like Rhodes, I said, no, let's name it for one of the managers that sold this plantation, which was Wright.
Yes. Now, after this was phased out, then you went with vocational work?
After I served them for 10 years under this division, and they had established their residence on each one of these, we sold this out. And as this was sold out, I felt like that my job had been finished.
You sold it out to the people who lived there mostly.
All those that were on these units and were satisfied, we sold these units to.
They were able to buy their own
they were able to buy their own.
Home and land.
And it says that the project was liquidated in favor of the people that owned the land there.
And then you moved to, after that time, then you moved to Rising, Arkansas.
I moved to Rising, Arkansas. We're going back to the county age of Louisiana. Which at that time,
the Second World War was going on, and had drawn most of the agriculture teachers from the different schools. And I was asked, would I take one of these schools and hold it and to be supplied with others, of which I was glad to do.
Now, you were in Rising, Arkansas. How long?
At that school, then, I fell in love with the people and the ones that I was associated with there. And I stayed there 4 years.
All right, and then after you left there, you went to, you moved to Pine Bluff, and you were in vocational agriculture work at Watson Chapel High School.
I was
Is that
in
right?
vocational work with that, and then I went in to teach the returning veterans
From World War II.
from World War II on their farm.
And you were in that work for how long?
I was in that work for 3 years until they had to establish themselves. And at that time, I felt like that I should retire. So after teaching school and helping those returning veterans in their profession, I retired and we bought our home then in Pine Bluff.
Yes. Now, I think during all this time, our mother was very sympathetic with the work that you had done, and she was an outdoors person in that she loved flowers and trees. And
she had established herself as one of the directors, all the directors of the different flower clubs, garden clubs, our garden club of the entire county, and then she was elected to the state board of garden clubs.
And I think she was also qualified as a garden judge.
She held positions for the statewide garden clubs. And that way we attended them in the various states of the Union.
And she was quite an authority with the committee. Yes, she was.
Yeah.
And belonged to the state committee society and was a life member of the garden club.
National member of the entire.
And so you all worked together.
And a lifelong member.
You all really worked together in the things that both of you all were interested in.
Different branches, yes.
And then you had, out of the 3 daughters that you had 9 grandchildren.
9 grandchildren.
And as of today, you have 9 great-grandchildren.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're located in different states, and they've all done well.
That's right. They've done well. And my work throughout that state then has been established as one of the leaders for the southern states. And
well, Daddy, I think you've done very well in your lifetime, and we're all proud of you.
My entire lifetime has been serving my family and my people that I work with.
And the Lord has blessed you greatly.
The Lord has blessed me in every way, financially and socially and in the other way.
Spiritually.
And I feel like that the Lord and His work has blessed me with the successes I have met in all undertakings. I take the Lord in as one of my partners and to this day. And He's taking care of me in return.
Yes, and now you are 92 years old.
Now I'm 92 years old.
And our mother lived to be 89, and she was your lifetime partner.
That's right.
And without her, none of this would have been possible.
That's exactly it.
And you all were married how long? You were married 66 years?
We were married 66 years when I lost my wife.
Yes.
And now I'm retired, and I'm enjoying it myself with my children, my great-grandchildren, and my hunting clubs.
And your fishing.
And my fishing.
And we're real proud of you, Daddy.
Well, I'm proud of not only the work that I have done and the work that the Lord has given me to bless my followers with.
Okay. Way bye to Daddy. Say bye-bye. Did you enjoy visiting Aunt Helen and Uncle Dale's house more? You see all the birds out there? And the squirrels? You see all the birds and squirrels out there? It's Daddy. It's Daddy. Is he laughing? Oh, you like that, don't you? Huh? You like that, don't you? Now, you want to jump a little bit? Look at Daddy. Look at Daddy. Now, he's a sweet boy. He's a sweet boy. There's Daddy. Look at Daddy. Look at Daddy. Yeah.
He's got your pearls, Mom.
Daddy, the whole time you were talking, the birds were just... Look at Daddy.
They were.
Yeah, all kind of birds. Helen, you all come over here and talk.
Yeah.
Now, goodness. Wait. All right, have Daddy sit down in that chair right there. There's Granddaddy. Ronnie, why don't you sit down and I'll take a picture for generation.
Okay.
Granddaddy. Granddaddy. Beth, won't you sit down?
Who is that? That's your great-granddaddy.
Here he is.
That's your great-granddaddy.
No, you turn around. Is Aunt Helen?
Bessie, you try that,
Aunt Helen?
that little ribbon on it.
Yeah.
Hold that a
Come on, Mark. Well, come on.
What?
Do I keep it on all the time?
No, let it go.
Oh, yes. Now. Now. Look at Aunt Helen. Yeah. There's Daddy.
Look.
Happy guy, huh?
There's Mommy.
Oh, Becky's right.
There's
She was.
Mommy.
There's Mommy.
I'm tired and ready for my nap.
Well, time to go.
Good
Okay,
boy.
that's fine.
When you Gordon and Stan. Gordon went.
Dan, you'll do. Just jump in there and take a picture. There's a whole lot like Stan. I'll sit here like this. Yeah, behind this guy.
Somebody do Gordon.
No, that's just a little too big. I don't know. Don't go get him. Go get him, Joe.
Go find him.
Let's go find him. Go.
Let's all go find him.
We'll be back here in 30 minutes.
We'll meet up.
Gordon, where's my camera?
It's over here. You sit right in the middle.
Hey, there's Stan. Where'd you go?
Sit down right here.
We thought you was going out to Daddy. You want Stanley there.
No, it's one man then.
You want Stanley there.
You want me there?
Yeah. I want you down there.
You're gonna try on either, see if it's sterile. She has time. We don't have enough room for 6 minutes.
Oh, the airbell?
Oh, here we all are.
Stan, don't sit up quite so straight. Looks like you're ready to jump out.
How's that?
That was good.
Somebody take one of my camera. Yeah, I got it here. Oh, Rick's got it.
Y'all look at Miss Wilson.
Okay. Primary photographer first.
1, 2, 3.
All right.
One more.
Well, good. I feel like I'm that one. Right out interview today.
This is still where you...
Everybody do that thing.
Yeah, then my camera.
Yeah.
Let's get over toward the middle, Dan.
Yeah, well, you get it.
Okay. Now, let's get all the spouses of these people.
Wait, don't go.
Wait. Are you filming? We want all the spouses.
Come on, where'd you get up here?
I think Beth was doing her thing over there. That's the trick.
Y'all gotta get still. This is slow. This is about, what is it, 30 or so? Find my camera. Just hold it still, Reggie. Yeah, you'll do good. Yeah, but everybody's moving in the back row back
Stand there like that.
I can't help that. That's uncontrollable. It's an uncontrollable factor. There you go.
That's good, Reggie. You're on camera. Reggie, you get my camera.
Yeah.
You got it, Beth?
That's almost what Channel 7 had the other day.
Are you getting some of it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought.
Got it all.
They did it.
Y'all come on. All these boys. Poorly there.
You gotta be a mom.
Ron. Extra Looney.
I tell you what, they told him to fill it. I went all real movie.
They want to hold the brother.
And you let Liv Beth sit down. Liv Beth sit in the middle.
On your knee, down.
Liv Beth sit in the middle.
Put your hand there, that looks neat.
Honey, listen, it will. Come on, sit down. Honey, that's good. Now, that's darling. Right. That's darling.
That looks real natural.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, Oh, that's cute.
Quick.
Guess what we're getting a picture of? Quickly. That movie. Hurry up, Charlotte. She's waiting on you.
She's standing here holding her hand. That little black vampire is a...
Where's some more?
But it's just this, isn't it? Are there any more great-grandchildren?
All right. Joseph.
Where's the babe?
Mark and
Gordon.
aren't here, so this isn't all of them anyway.
Hey.
Okay.
Shoulders up, Gordon.
Look at here. Look at me, boys.
Look, listen, y'all look at his Wilson. Y'all look at his Wilson. Todd, Gordon.
Straighten up, boys.
Let's go on. That's good.
Hey.
Todd, put your hand on your brownie. Todd, you're going to have to smile a little bit, darling. This is fun.
We need to think about...
What you got, darling?
We need to think about Mickey Mouse and...
We can't take very long with this. Now, look.
Okay, everybody's looking as happy. You get paid, darling. Come on, smile for me. Todd. Okay.
Okay, did you get it? Okay, that's how okay, now.
Marion, what are you doing? Making moves? Looking and happy. Thank you.
Great.
Bill.
Bill, would you use that Donnie's camera?
Yeah.
Ronnie's still taking pictures, you know. His don't stop.
Ron, he just gets the real one.
You're the official photographer today, is that right?
That's right.
Well, that's great. Have you done this for them before? Well, that's nice. Nice.
I've been over here and made pictures many times.
Have you really?
Sure.
Did you come for the 50th anniversary?
I did.
You've been doing this a long time.
I made the one that's sitting over there.
What, that picture over there? Is that right?
I've got one in my purse. Let me show y'all that I made.
Marion, you and Helen, come on. Marion?
Show it to Miriam.
Take a look at this one you took.
Yeah, that was.
Remember that one? Is this about the size you want these cards?
Yes. That's right. I want to show that. Well, honey, stay here right now.
Yeah, I'm considered an airline employee. Well, the benefits vary with the airline. Some of them I can travel free. Some of the other ones, like, they were one of the airlines that owned it. They own stock in our company. But,
What are you guys having for lunch?
Is it working? Do you have it on?
Mm-hmm.
What's in your backpack?
That's my recorder.
And battery.
There she is.
And what else? Wait, tell my brother you can record you Yep. Are you going to put it on TV today? Did you bring it to show us? I think you can't. Oh, my. Now, let's look like you going to put it on that show us run and go home? Did you bring us something to show us? You going to show anything? Okay. I gotta go get some water. That's honeycomb. No. It's a very easy. Did you like it?
Mother, you got the camera?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Tom,
No
sorry.
lipstick, no nothing on it. No
This is
lipstick,
good.
no
picture.
No, somebody got a camera with some film in it? Yeah.
Ron does.
Which one?
Here we go.
I want a picture of us right here, and I don't have any.
Look like it. You got one?
Ron's taking pictures of this
Oh,
right
yeah.
there.
From what? Yeah, right. Let's get it between there and party. Right.
Yeah, it's, sit on my,
The other thing is, you gotta remember
Who's that for?
You saw it.
No, I didn't see it.
Kelly said she already gave one to Gordon.
That's great.
Can't be without one of those, right? Without several of them.
You're on fire.
Now we're over that.
It just so, it isn't real hot.
Marion, they have to go.
Cool water.
I know it, but they don't. It's supposed to be 30 minutes before the plane. And he said if she misses her plane, it's her fault.
I see you. I see you. The newest edition. For all the great-grandchildren, huh? What's his full name?
Joseph William Thompson.
All right.
Can you zoom in a bit and everything, Ronnie?
Brandon heard his heart. Yeah, but I'm like a pie.
Joe, you're going to get one after you see this.
Like a little.
Right.
A little ribbon.
Damn, they have to show before leaving.
Can you look at? That thing turns automatically.
Here we are. That's
It focus, doesn't it? How perfect. Oh, it does.
That's lovely.
No.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ludi, how did you meet Mr. and Miss Rhodes?
Well, I used to work for the Hopkins that lived down further on 20. And one day I was coming by here, and Mrs. Rhodes was standing at her place. And I spoke to her, and she spoke to me, and I said something about the weather. And we just got in a conversation. And then she asked, did I have any extra time that I could help her? The lady that she had left or moved or something.
Do you know about what year this was? Do you remember about
It's been 27 years ago now. You just can't...
Well, I was a little fella, because I remember you a long time ago.
Well, listen, it was in 79 when it was 27 years back.
79, 27 years.
Back from there.
Okay, you just have 27, that meant 80, 81, 82, so that'd be 30 years. That'd be 30 years. I'd have been 9 years old. Because I'm 39 now, so I was 9 years old when so I was a pretty small fella. And Ronnie, he's younger than I am.
69, 59, 49, 39. It's 37 years up to 79. And of course, after that I worked, well, I first started working 1 day a week. And then after that I started working 2 days a week. And from that on, only when I was off on my vacations or something, I'd be right here with her.
So I remember I used to come up here every once in a while. Yeah, Ludi would be here. And then
She was here an awful lot.
Well,
I guess all the grandchildren knew you, didn't they, Ludi?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, they all did, because sometimes when they come bring the grandchildren, I'd keep them and see after them. I'd see one going to go someplace and tend to some business. And, let's see, well, that's good. I'd say that could be appropriate. And we learned each other. I really believe that I understood their mother better than they did.
Than the girls did.
In their latter days. See, I was here with them more than they were. And, you know, as we changed our attitude as we get older. And so, and they always was, so they are the only people that I ever borrowed any money from. I borrowed $60 from her once to send my boy off to school, and then I borrowed $60 from her to get my glasses once. And as many people that I had worked for, they're the only people that I ever borrowed any money from.
Is that right?
And let me see now. We never had any, well, we maybe have a little misunderstanding or something like that, but we always got along lovely. They always was just nice and sweet as they could be. I wouldn't want to work for any better people. And I see their old pear tree is about to go down. I've got a million pear for that tree.
That's the truth. She's loaded right now, though, isn't
Yes, she really is. And they always was willing to, you know, share with me whatever they got. If they got anything more than they wanted, they would always share, think about me. And whenever I'd go off on trips, sometimes she'd give me extra money if I went on my vacation. And I wouldn't want nobody to be no nicer than they were. They cut out and stuff to us. I love them, and I think they love me.
Well, we're sure glad you could be here today.
They
I know they did.
I said, we're sure glad you could be here today to share this day with us, because it's a pretty special day.
But I tell you right now, I couldn't, I don't know whether I could have been satisfied about it, because I was here with her, and I was visit her when she was in the hospital. And when I'd go up to, and they would ask her, and some of the people would come in and ask, say, who is that? She said, that's my friend. That's my friend. And they said, do you know her? I said, yeah, I know her. That's my friend. And I would talk with her. I would pray with her. And I'd go to see her every week. And I was in the hospital. In fact, sometime I may would miss it. But I would go up and try to consolate her and comfort her and, you know, help her to take her condition peacefully. But she never suffered very much. She suffered some, but she didn't suffer very much.
I'm just glad Granddaddy
that's...
through where she had to go.
Nah,
Well, we're sure glad you've been a friend of the family for so long. And you've been part of the family for a lot of us. This is the day of Granddad's funeral. And I'm looking at the house. Most of the people have left right now. We're going to walk in, just take a little tour through the house here. The old trunk and the cooker, the pantry, of course the kitchen. Howdy, Beth.
Do you have one you want to give away?
No. This is Granddad's room.
Ajax or something. Got it all over
What
my
are y'all doing in here? Let me just take a look. Take a look. Just want to look at Granddad.
We gotta get out of here, the banner.
I just want to look around. I'm not going to look out the back there.
I can't do that.
Huh?
Talk about doctor. Sure, it's not a 32.
I don't think it is.
I think it is.
What's that?
I don't know.
It's 32, I'm sure.
I'll tell you.
That one?
Yeah. I don't know.
That's don't try to put the 38s in there. It won't fit.
Not a special. A special.
That's 38. That's just a plain 38. 38 special. 38 has another small.
No, fine. The living room, and the dining room, sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course, we all saw the...
Jennifer, you sure look good from the pictures now. some different hairstyles, to be sure. So I want to go and get my wallet and show you a picture of my little sister. A lot alike. You know, really? I didn't realize it. How old is she? She's 21 now.
That bit out of the cemetery because he didn't want me to do it, you know, that. So, okay, I'll call him back.
Oh, we got a new little baby in here. This is Joseph Thompson. This is grandmother's room.
The shoes on the floor, kid.
That's fine. I'm going, so y'all.
Get the little bell up there.
You know, where
Where?
you read and it goes in the kitchen, you know?
Oh yeah, let me just get here. Get this picture here.
Let's put this one someplace where you can get it. This is Mary there. Where can we put that?
Where's Mary?
This picture right here was a group of his friends down when he was hunting down in Chico County. It was just a little south of Durham. You turned off of 165 highway, I believe it's 165, and went back in there. But all that timber now has been cleared up. But this was a group of his friends, and this was one of the first, was one of the first deer camps that he was in this part of the country. And this fellow right, this elderly gentleman right here was Dr. Robinson. He lived with Dr. Robinson when he left the project up there and went to Rising to teach school there. And this is a group of his friends that he hunted with there. And all these fellows now are dead. And this was at Judge Golden's deer camp. But like I said previously, all this land now has been cleared up. It's cleared all the timber up, and he moved to another deer camp called Jefferson Lake Hunting Club in about 1961 or 2. He moved to that camp, and there were quite a few of the fellows there from his deer camp today were at his funeral today. And he has a number of articles in there that he built, like all his horns. He built a number of his horns. He used to have, I don't know where they all went to, but he had some goat horns. He used to really like to make the goat horns. And he gave a number of them to his friends in the deer camps to call dogs and stuff like that. But he really did. He liked to do the same for other people that make them. And also he had turkey calls. He liked to make all of his friends turkey calls. He did a good job at it. He liked to deer hunt. And he didn't turkey hunt much because in the later years he couldn't see real good. But he did still like to make turkey calls for people. And he made box calls. He made slate calls. And he made mouth calls.
There was a call he was making just when he came back from Washington. He asked me if I had any drill bits. He was making a new type of call for turkey call. And I gave him the drill bit that he needed, the size that he needed, and he was thrilled to death. He said he couldn't find any drill bits anywhere. But he was going to make this, he was going to drill it in a bone.
But one of the oldest articles in this cabinet that he still has, that we were looking at through his stuff a minute ago, that he still has, that I can remember when I was a little fellow, that he carried, and the last time I hunted with him, that he carried. He would always put this over his shoulder. And he carried a walking stick,
And a water bottle.
He carried a walking stick and walking bottle, and you'd see him just like this. He'd have his old pack on right here, and he'd have all of his stuff. Let's see. A lot of his stuff. He used to blow his old whistle. We couldn't find him. Yeah. He'd take that old whistle, and he couldn't holler. But he'd blow an old whistle. To say, you know, where you find him in the woods, he'd hear you, he couldn't holler, and he'd blow an old whistle.
And he'd carry a half pint.
He'd carry a pint of water, and he would, I don't know what that is. That's some kind of medicine in a little old pack. But he'd carry all of his stuff in this little old sack. And as long as I can remember, he had this little old sack, and he'd always carry this sack in his shells or whatever he'd have. He carried in this little old sack. I believe his brother, his brother Ralph, gave him this sack because a lot of stuff he had in the military, and all of it that I know of, he'd always told me that it came from Uncle Ralph. Now, what insignia is that, Ron? What kind of insignia is that?
Well, U.S., listen, I'm not sure.
This right here. Is that medicine? No, that's
Chemistry.
chemistry.
It's a chemical core. Chemical core.
But he always used that. Right here, here's a compass. He told me that his brother gave, his brother Ralph gave. He liked a lot of, he liked stuff that his brothers had given him, you know. All like Uncle Ralph. His oldest brother gave him that.
Do a couple of those calls for me.
All right, these are turkey calls. Oh no, I didn't. Here's a mouth call. This is a mouth call, and it's used like this. They use that call during the mating season, and the hen makes this noise calling the gobbler. She makes that particular sound calling the gobbler.
Yeah, a turkey wing bone, isn't it?
This is the wing bone out of a turkey. This is just a little cork. This is just a little cork, and this is just a little piece of that's rosewood that he had used to make this piece. This is called a box call. This is a Lynch box call. This is a real popular call, but he didn't make this. He bought this one.
Well, there's something he made there?
Oh yeah. That's a Lynch box, and this is called a little slate call. Now, this is one he made. Yeah. This call. That's just a piece of corn cob, a little stick of wood drilled out, put in there, and this is a piece of slate. That's probably off the roof of his house. The house has a slate roof, and he has some old slate out there in the garage. That's another little box call. You can use it. You need a little piece of chalk. What you need? Dustless chalk. Chalk or do you slate? Well, you can use slate, but a piece of dustless chalk is better.
That's right.
You gonna do one more, and then we'll go. Okay.
That's a hand, brother.
That doesn't sound right at all, but that's the way you use it, Ron. That doesn't sound right at all because we don't have the proper type. We need some dustless chalk is what you need.
That's
but he can't make all these calls. And let's see. Here's a little small horn that he had made. Made all these? Yeah, he made all his horns.
You want to hear this one? I think we heard it.
Yeah, he really enjoyed the woods. He spent many hours there, and he told me one thing. He said, Bill, he said, if you keep those boys in the woods, they'll never go wrong. I said, I guess that's the only thing that kept me from going wrong. I said, and I appreciate him doing it.
So this was taken right when we got done. Help Ronnie. Okay, Ronnie, are you just? All right, this was a picture that was taken of Susan and Becky. Becky was 4 years old and Susan was 2 years old. We had just come back from a tour of duty in Turkey, and we had this picture made of it. This was probably their Easter.
That's sweet. Great, thanks.
And McGee. when she was 5 years old, I believe, and she had just been chosen as Little Miss McGee.
Is that right?
Isn't it beautiful?
That's really neat.
I've always cherished this picture. It's on bracelet.
Yeah, nice.
This was a picture that was made of my mother at her wedding, November the 24th, 1915. She was married at Overlook Manor Plantation to our father, and they had a large wedding, large ball wedding. One special feature of the wedding was that Granddaddy Gordon had planted and grown all the flowers that were used in this wedding chrysanthemums. Beautiful chrysanthemums. She was always so proud of them. The Gordon family. These were framed by Mr. Free in Helen, Arkansas.
Yes, house. 1920 cherry. Old porch. Fantastic garden along here. As we walk along, we'll finish up for the day. It's been a very sad day and a very happy day to see a lot of family gathered around Granddad for his funeral. There's the entrance and the other entrance. Lovely backyard. And he had his garden and his pear trees. It's okra, tomatoes, melons, squash, all kinds of neat things growing. Big plant, big squash, and lots of tomatoes. And I'm just glad to have been here today.